Hey friends, stop for a second and really listen to this, because this story reveals something far deeper than what we think we know about money and power. And once you hear it, you won't forget it. Every empire believes its wealth will last forever, but history ruthlessly shows that mountains of gold can vanish overnight. In 1917, as the Russian Empire crumbled under war, revolution, and total chaos, one of the world's largest gold reserves simply evaporated. We're talking billions of dollars in today's money, not trillions, but still billions, lost in the shadows of history. Some say the Bolsheviks used it to fund the revolution. Others claim foreign powers quietly seized it, and still others believe it remains buried forever in Siberia's vast snowy plains. But one thing we know for sure: when Russia's gold disappeared, the financial foundation of an empire that once ruled half the world collapsed. At the start of the 20th century, Russia possessed one of the undisputed largest gold stockpiles on Earth. In 1914, just before World War I, official reserves exceeded 1,300 tons, the second largest in the world after France, and more than the combined totals of Germany, Britain, and the United States. At that time, the monetary system was based on the gold standard. Every paper ruble was backed by real gold in the vaults. This stockpile allowed Russia to borrow on international markets, feed its army, import goods, and maintain global confidence in the ruble. For ordinary Russians, this meant, at least on paper, some stability. But in reality, that confidence rested on a very fragile foundation. Then war arrived and turned everything upside down. In 1914, Russia mobilized millions of soldiers, and military spending tripled within 2 years. Ammunition, rifles, artillery, railways to transport troops to the front, all of it required hard currency, mostly imported from abroad. Gold reserves began flowing westward rapidly to pay debts to allies and purchase supplies. At the same time, the government started printing paper money far beyond the reserves, hoping no one would notice. But people did notice. Inflation exploded. The ruble, once respected in international markets, began losing value even at home. Bread prices doubled, then tripled, wages stagnated. Life became unbearable for peasants, workers, and urban families. Hunger, cold, and despair spilled into the streets.
By 1917, the empire was cracking. Soldiers were mutinying at the front, strikes were spreading in factories, and bread lines in Petrograd turned into uprisings. The February Revolution erupted, and Tsar Nicholas II was forced to abdicate, ending the 300-year Romanov dynasty in an instant. The provisional government that followed was weak, divided, and desperate. While trying to continue the war, one of their biggest problems was the gold. What to do with it? They moved some of it eastward by train to the depths of Siberia, guarded by soldiers of increasingly doubtful loyalty. Some was sent to London, Paris, and even Japan as collateral for loans. But the bulk disappeared in the fog and chaos of the revolution.
When the Bolsheviks seized power in October 1917 with the October Revolution, very little remained of what had once been the world's second largest reserve. Lenin and Trotsky immediately began using the remaining gold to survive, because ideology alone couldn't buy weapons, bread, or coal. They sold gold abroad to arm the Red Army, traded with Germany under the 1918 Brest-Litovsk Treaty, and bought recognition from foreign countries. But even Western intelligence reports showed that the Bolsheviks' reserves were far smaller than a few years earlier. Hundreds of tons of gold had vanished.
Where did this loss occur? Much of it happened during the chaos of the Russian Civil War. The White Armies, anti-Bolshevik forces, especially in Siberia, captured massive stockpiles. Leaders like Admiral Kolchak at one point controlled over 500 tons, stored in cities like Kazan. But when the Bolsheviks captured Kolchak in 1920, most of that gold was gone. Some had been stolen by corrupt officials and foreign mercenaries, some shipped abroad in exchange for weapons, and some simply looted. Legends still circulate today: gold-laden trains derailed in Siberia's snowy steppes and never found, or crates dumped into the icy waters of Lake Baikal to keep them from the Bolsheviks.
Foreign powers didn't stand idle either. Britain, France, Japan, and even the United States sent troops to Russia during the Civil War and allegedly seized gold shipments under the pretext of debt repayment or security. Evidence is limited, but by the early 1920s, the Russian Empire's mountains of gold had turned into a shadow. For ordinary Russians, this loss was a complete disaster. Without reserves, the ruble collapsed entirely. Hyperinflation struck in 1921-1922. A loaf of bread cost millions, even billions of rubles. People started burning money for heat and reverted to barter, trading food, clothing, and labor directly. The empire had lost not just its throne and territories, but its financial security. And here's the most disturbing part. Russia's crisis was not unique. We see the exact same pattern in Rome debasing its silver coins, in Weimar Germany printing money, and in every modern hyperinflation collapse. Governments devalue currency, reserves are spent or vanish, trust evaporates, and society itself unravels. The only difference is in the details. Rome diluted silver, Germany printed marks, Russia saw its gold physically disappear on trains, in vaults, and in pockets. But the outcome is the same. Ordinary people are plunged into misery, while those with power and connections protect themselves, or even profit. As the Bolsheviks sold the remaining gold at discount prices to the West, bankers, middlemen, and governments made fortunes from Russia's desperation. This dynamic repeats in every crisis. As a system collapses, vultures gather, and money and power quietly change hands. By the mid-1920s, Soviet Russia had only a tiny fraction of its pre-war stock, estimated at under 300 tons. The rest had been looted, traded away, or lost forever. So why does the lost Russian gold of 1917 still matter in 2025? Because the same dynamics are at play today. Countries still accumulate reserves to back their currencies and project power. Central banks shuttle gold between vaults in New York, London, and Zurich, promising transparency while hiding the real figures. Sanctioned Russia, collapsing Venezuela, or quietly stockpiling China all know that when fiat currencies falter, gold remains the ultimate backstop. In recent years, we've seen reserves weaponized. After the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, the West froze roughly $300 billion of Russia's overseas reserves. This is the modern equivalent of seizing Kolchak's trains or blocking Bolshevik gold. Money is not just an economic tool, it's a political weapon. And once again, ordinary people pay the price. Inflation, shortages, and instability hit citizens hardest, not the elites behind the scenes. There's one more lesson. Wealth built on trust can disappear far faster than we imagine. The Russian Empire thought its gold reserves made it untouchable, but war and revolution changed everything. Today, many assume their bank accounts and retirement funds are safe, but that money is fiat currency, ultimately based on trust in governments, central banks, and systems that have collapsed repeatedly. When that trust cracks, wealth evaporates. What should we take from this story? First, don't confuse paper promises with real wealth. Russians thought their rubles were safe because of the gold in the vaults. When the vaults emptied, the money became firewood. Second, crises are times when wealth changes hands. The empire fell, but bankers, smugglers, and foreign powers profited from the chaos. The same will happen in the next crisis: financial collapse, currency crisis, or geopolitical shock. Third, control of money is always control of people. The Bolsheviks learned this quickly, and today's governments and central banks know it very well. The disappearance of Russia's gold wasn't just a mystery or a tale of lost trains. It was one of economic history's turning points. It showed how fragile wealth truly is and how it can be stripped away in crisis. And it offers a timeless warning about debt, inflation, money manipulation, and the quiet transfer of wealth from the many to the few. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes with frightening precision. Rome debased its currency. Russia lost its gold. Modern nations create trillions at the push of a button. Different methods, same result. Ordinary people lose faith in money. Elites protect themselves, and systems collapse under the weight of their own lies. So the next time you hear news about reserves, China's gold purchases, the Fed printing money, asset freezes via sanctions, remember 1917. Remember that even the largest piles of gold can disappear, and with them, the stability of entire nations.
If this story shifted your perspective even a little, subscribe. History hides the answers. I'm here to show you where they are.